Peter Noble, Director of Bluesfest. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you, Greg. How are you today?
I'm very well. You're about to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Bluesfest in late March this year. Congratulations on that. Let's talk about some of the acts that are appearing. You've brought back Bluesfest royalty in Ben Harper and Jack Johnson. Tell me about your relationship with those two artists, yourself and the festival.
Well, we have a very long-term relationship with both, and we've introduced both artists to Australia. I think it was 96 for Ben Harper and 2001, by memory, for Jack Johnson. And of course, both have returned quite a few times, but it's been a while for both of them now. I think it's a good 5 years, at least, for each of them. And it'd be good to see them back. Of course, there's been a COVID interruption in the middle of all that. But yeah, they are artists that allowed me to see where Bluesfest could go. We were originally a pretty strictly blues festival, and then we started to branch out. And when Ben Harper played in '96, a whole new audience came to Bluesfest that were roots music lovers, and you could hear the blues in Ben Harper's music, but there was a lot of other influences. And of course, he sat down and played the Weissenborn, which was quite a revelation to many. I think he introduced that instrument to many people. And so I was watching his performance going, there really is something going on here. That there's a new audience discovering what we're doing. And that audience was an audience that was aside. It was different than the people who just wanted to hear blues. And I see my role as keeping the blues alive. And the way you do that is you incorporate the changes that happened, and those artists who are brave enough to take the roots of the blues into another era, to keep it refreshed and alive. I think Ben Harper was at the time, and still is, a really special person along the way. And the influences he had in Australia were just profound. I mean, the John Butlers and Xavier Rudds and so many others, beautiful girls, and you could go on and on, were so deeply influenced by him. There was a whole movement in Australia.
Yeah.
And it was certainly around the time I changed the name of the festival from East Coast Blues Fest to East Coast Blues and Roots Music Festival. Because that's actually what we were. It's what we are. And that morphed into Bluesfest later because we needed the name was too long, East Coast Blues and Roots Music Festival, where it became Bluesfest. But we always have that thing underneath it saying a celebration of blues and roots music and beyond.
Yeah.
So I think Ben Harper, and it's incredible to think how big he was at one point. Like within 5 years, he couldn't put an album out in Australia that wasn't, if it wasn't number one, it was definitely top 5. And so he brought so many people through his music to come and experience the music that we present. Because there'll always be blues at Bluesfest.
Yeah.
But it will sit beside other forms of music. It will always be the roots of the festival. And the branches will be all the other things we do. But and then the next one was Jack Johnson. Now, many people say, well, Peter, maybe you were pushing it a bit there, but I challenge anyone to have a real listen to Jack Johnson and tell me he's not a great musician. Yes, he's not out there screaming it, but is he ever able to sing and play it? So when he came, we found that there is definitely an audience, and we all know that he is a former professional surfer. And Byron, where I live in Lennox Head, are some of the surf capitals of the world. So he just fit who we were as a region and as a lifestyle. And the guy can play. So and as it's turned out, Jack Johnson has got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's amazing how popular he is. Somebody doing that kind of music as a native Hawaiian. And native Hawaiian is code for Indigenous. And it's great to see Indigenous people, even though he doesn't ever go out there and push that, succeed at that level. Yeah. So, yes, they are two of the, I guess, bedrock artists of Bluesfest, and to get them back on our 35th, and we did have them on our 30th. But I didn't even realize that. I just book a festival every year that, to me, is meaningful. And somebody goes, you had them both 5 years ago. I go, oh, wish I could get them more.
Speaking of the blues, Taj Mahal is a resident blues legend this year. There aren't too many of the original guys left now. It's important that people see these artists while they can, isn't it?
Well, I'm never going to say every chance you get to see people once they're at that age could be your last. But it is important if you really want to be able to experience who the greats are. And even though they might be in their latter years of their careers, they're still great. Because once you're great, you're great. And then, unless something physical happens where you can't do that, I find Taj Mahal is one of the greatest I've ever worked with. And it's funny because it took the blues world so long to accept him. I remember it was only 10 or so years ago, I was at the Blues Music Awards in Memphis, and I just toured Tedeschi Trucks, and I'm standing talking with Derek and Suzanne, wonderful people. And I was saying, I don't get it why Taj Mahal is not nominated for Blues Awards. I mean, let's think back to his original albums, the Natural Blues and stuff like that. I mean, that was one of the most influential records of blues to me ever. There's songs like Paint My Mailbox Blue and, going up the country and Paint My Mailbox Blue. They were just a different take on what blues could be. I guess they were country blues in a way. And we got into it and we talked a little bit about it all, about why isn't Taj getting Blues Awards nominations? And it was pretty simple when we asked a couple of people in the body of that group. They said, well, he's not just a blues musician. He does jazz, and he does world music, and he does Hawaiian music, and he does all these other things, like his latest album's a big band album. And I'm like, well, why hold that against him that he's super talented? And he can play in many genres. There ain't nobody better hardly in the blues than that man. Yeah. Anyway, after that, I think I got through. And maybe Derek and Susan had a word too, because he started getting nominations in the BMAs. And it's very important that the things like that happen, that we don't go, well, someone is so multi-talented, they're no longer a blues man. I think Taj Mahal is very well educated. He's got a degree in agriculture. His family comes from, pretty sure was it called St. Kitts, way back in the time. And I know he's got Jamaican parentage too. He's just he's a wonderful human being. I could tell you a great quick story about him. There's a book called Cuba and Its Music, Volume 1, although there's never been a Volume 2, by Ned Sublette. And I happened to be reading it one time when I was touring Taj, and he saw me reading it, and he said, Peter, how he talks, I want to read that book. So I gave it to him, thinking I'd never see it again. I think it was sometime the next day he handed it back to me. I go, what, you didn't like it? He goes, no, I've read all of it. And that's one of the great music books where it actually really defines how music sounds the way it does following the middle passage, why the Cuban music is different than the Mississippi Delta music. Where those slaves came from is what Ned went out and studied. So that the slaves from the more southerly area of Africa, say Nigeria, which have forests and are wooded, are much more rhythmic. They cut down trees and made drums. Why the music of Mali is much more string-based, because it was influenced by the great advances of Islam, who brought the stringed instruments with them, and not too many trees growing in the deserts of Mali. And so that's why the music of John Lee Hooker has that droning sound, and you can hear it, how it connects to North Africa, how the music of Cuba and the Cuban artists is so rhythmic. And for that fact, New Orleans, because, you know, we all know that New Orleans is the northernmost city of the Caribbean. Anyway, pardon me getting into it. But Taj, when you mentioned Taj Mahal,
yeah,
it reminds me of all those conversations we have on the road. And it's a great time for me to get out there and speak music with people that are really into it. And Taj is definitely one.
Yeah. A surprise inclusion for Bluesfest this year was Infectious Grooves, featuring members of Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, Slipknot, and Velvet Revolver. Did you think twice about booking them?
No, I booked them the same day I got offered them. I had to listen to what they're doing, and I went, if I would book George Clinton Parliament Funkadelic as many times as I have, then what's the difference?
Yeah.
I hear music like that. I hear the funk in that. And I hear the fact that you can take, as Parliament did way back, music and turn it into funkadelic through all the influences of the day, being the psychedelic influence and the funk influence of James Brown, and take it to another different level, which is what they did. Well, I hear Infectious Grooves like that. It's a funk band thrashing, and it's great musicians, and and I guess it's kind of in that it's in that long line of me booking artists that people go, why did you do that? Like, who else did I book like that? Kendrick Lamar. And I just happened to be on a plane with the album on, flying from, I think, London to Singapore, and I put To Pimp a Butterfly on. And I'm listening to this, and I'm going, wow, there's Kamasi Washington, and there's Glasper, and there's all these people, and there's this marriage of the most modern West Coast jazz. And I'm not talking about bebop. I'm talking about very, now, with a rapper. And it was, to me, it was just incredible. And I went, I have to book that man. And I did. I was the first festival to present him in Australia. Of course, he's become a superstar. But I just hear music like that. And I hear it when people marry great music up. And if you remember when Kendrick first toured, and I can't speak now because I don't get access to him now that he's able to fill out stadiums, he brought a band out, and they were great. And so I just hear Infectious Grooves and bands like that as part of the whole music pantheon. They're great musicians. And yeah, I'm not just I woke up this morning, da-da-da-da guy.
So who is involved in the selection process for the lineup? Is it totally your call?
Primarily, I mean, there's great suggestions that come in. One was Chris Richards calling me a couple of years ago about Here Come the Mummies. And he's going, Peter, there's this great band out of Memphis. It's like an incredible funk band, even though they dress up as mummies. And you ought to become aware of them. And of course, COVID knocked them out from coming, but we're finally getting them back. So yes, I do listen to people. I do get contacted by agents and managers. But I pretty much book it with suggestions from some of my key office people that I've got some very musical people in my office, and some people who are more aware of some forms of music than me. And so I do listen to them. And I think you'll find this year Alexis from my office has booked all of the artists who are opening on the outside tours, except for the Ormond Betts one, which has got all those great Australian guitar players on it. Yeah, because they know their music. I've got a wonderful team at Bluesfest.
Yeah.
We're music people who
Yeah.
happen to be lucky enough to be in the business for all these years, but we didn't come from a law or accounting background in the creative area. I was a pro musician for 12 years, playing the world before I got into this side of it. And I'll always book from a musician's viewpoint, as long as I'm able to, as long as they keep coming, and the Lord gives me good health.
Yeah.
I've been in this game a long time now.
Yeah. Tommy Emmanuel is coming home to play for the first time as a Grammy Award winner. I'm sure he'll get the reception he deserves when he's on stage at Bluesfest.
Well, I do hope so. I was a little disappointed. I thought that his Grammy win, the first time in such a long career, was a little underreported by the general media. I am told that the ABC got onto it after about a day, which good on them, because Tommy Emmanuel he's one of the greatest Australian musicians ever. And the fact that after how many years in the business, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 40, 50, he finally gets a Grammy. That should have been major news. And I'm yet to see any of the music blogs have reported it. It kind of makes you go, there's two music industries in Australia. There's the, although they'll take our advertising money, there's the popular music industry and there's the real music industry. And although people in popular say, how dare you say that? And those musicians really, they deserve to be acknowledged more all the time. They really do. Tommy Emmanuel's one of our greatest.
Yeah. Apart from the bands, let's talk about a couple of the new additions or improvements you've made to Bluesfest after the floods. You did some irrigation work. Was that last year or the year before? The surface of Bluesfest?
Well, to be honest, I mean, people say people have a short memory. They forget that we got closed in 2020 due to COVID, about 3 weeks out. 2021, we get closed by government the day before the event, all set up, campers in the campground, artists in the area. Pardon me. And there was only one case of COVID. And I remember a prominent member of government, a minister, saying to me, "We don't want another Ruby Princess," as his reason for cancelling. But I noticed all the rugby league games went on. And the Sydney Royalist show went on, and Peter, the man that ran that at the time, called me and said, "I don't understand why they close you with a COVID safety plan that the whole Department of Health says is groundbreaking. Don't give us an opportunity to implement it for our whole industry." I had 120 COVID marshals there. It was amazing what we were doing and what we'd spent on it. And he's going, and I've got people shoulder to shoulder, walking around up to 80,000 a day, and they don't say a word to me. It's pretty horrible. And then the next year, of course, 2022, I think it was February 28th, we had the Lismore floods. But the Lismore floods didn't end in Lismore. They were across the entire region. And although the Bluesfest site flooded, when I say flooded, I mean people think of floods as being, pardon me, I'm an oldie, 5 or 6 feet high. No, it was probably 1 to 2 feet, but it's still flooded. And it's the first time we've had most of our site flood. And then 3 weeks later, it happened again, but that was 2 weeks out of the festival. So it was our first festival back. And we all just went, what are we going to do here? Like, the expectation was so high, particularly after the previous year's cancellation, that we would be going to happen and show the industry as the first festival out there in the season since COVID, as people were allowed to present, that it could happen. So we did, and it was a very wet event in the campgrounds, and for that I will eternally apologise. but we pulled it off. And that was the message to our industry was, you can knock us down, but we'll get up again. Yeah. Government. And so, yes, we did some flood remedial works after that, because look, what do we want? Do we want a grass-covered site that turns to mud if that happens again? Or do we want a site where we've lifted the base of the site by the level of the flooding and put in road base covered by black sand? We did it to protect against that happening again. Some people don't like the fact that the grass is gone in 3 of our 4 event sites. The 4th one wasn't flooded during the 2022, so there wasn't a reason to do it. But we wanted to be sure that we had a festival and under all conditions. And then we got out in the campgrounds and we changed the direction of water courses so that the water would flow away. We had a bit of rain about a week ago, and I was out there with Mick Williams, my site manager, just looking at it and going, you know what? His work of like just basically causing the water not to flow into the campgrounds, but to flow away from them, it's working. The campgrounds might be moist, but they're not, you don't sink into the ground if you get a rain event. So that's the sort of stuff you have to do as a festival. You've got to keep working on your site, and it never ends. Every single year we have something else to do. And we've been putting in pedestrian bridges and walkways. Yeah, I've got a whole team that does that year round.
Yeah. Bands in the VIP area. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, bands in the VIP plus viewing of the Crossroads and Mojo stage. Very, very simple. That people say, well, to be somewhere or other that, I can view the performances from the VIP area at so-and-so event. How come I can't from yours? But we addressed that, and then we said, okay, let's put some artists in there and see how that one goes. I mean, we love live music at Bluesfest, and so it's kind of a no-brainer, and it gave me the chance to put a couple of artists on that Brotherhood of the Blues, which I don't know if you know that artist.
Sorry, but, who was that?
Brotherhood of the Blues.
Oh yeah.
They are people who have some intellectual handicaps, and when they get on the stage, they're fantastic. And so I just thought, there's a shot to put them on the festival and give them some gigs in the VIP. And our discovery artist last year at the festival was Jerome Williams. I think he is one of the best guitar players I've ever heard. And the fact that he's not well known, and he's not just a guitar player, he's a singer, he's a songwriter, he's a performer. Man, he's got everything. So I'm putting him on Bluesfest, including the VIP, as many times as I can. But I'll never stop doing that with artists like with Roshani. Because these are the artists that we discovered. I discovered Roshani busking at Manly Corso. And now she's got an agent and she's booked all around Australia at other festivals. And I've got to play in the main stage this year. Because these are artists that one day those record companies will not do all-night parties at a 10 Bluesfest and come and see the artists playing at 12, 1 o'clock, because they're the ones they should be signing. I told them that with Kim Churchill for years. Yeah. But somebody actually got out of bed and got to his show, signed him immediately. And so that's what's going on in the VIP. They're artists that we think will be able to be part of just spreading the word about why they're so unique.
Yeah. Just one more and we'll let you go. For music fans who have never...
Well, of course, there's the busking stage too. And that's turned into another whole different thing, because I don't have the list in front of me, but the amount of artists who've played the busking stage and gone on to bigger things is just, it's endless now. Yeah. And I don't know about other busking festivals in Australia. People say we are the biggest one. I don't know. because it starts out in all the venues in Byron and gives us a chance to keep that connection that we've had with Byron Bay over the years. But also now it's become a thing for some of the big acts to come and do a set on, like a pop-up set. And you never know who it's going to be. So that's one of the great acts last year was Steven Seagulls from Finland, and they started doing the pop-ups on the busking. But they're not the only one. I mean, artists we've had in our busking competition that have won include Parcels, Tones and I, Buckley's, Kim Churchill, Minnie Marks, and I'm leaving a good dozen off. And we're very proud of that because you might get to work with the big guys, but in the end, don't forget that we all started somewhere, and anything you can do to help that process occur is good for our industry. Yeah.
So for music fans who have never been to Bluesfest before, what have you got to say to them?
Very simple. Come and camp or glamp, because it's 12 hours approximately a day, except for Thursday, of music. There'll be music you really want to hear, and some of the best stuff is early, like 12, 1, 2 o'clock. They're the artists who are coming up, and so it's not all about the headliners. You start maybe at 5 or 6 or 7 and go through to 11 or 12. The best thing you do is camp, because you can go back to your campsite, go and see who you want to see. Then you've got a place to go back to. We find every year it's so different. Our campgrounds are. We've never sold glamping like it, for argument's sake. We were just talking about it the other day, going, well, maybe with people not having as much money as normal, that there is such a thing as normal, we all know, unless people got money to go out and go and see live music, which many people are finding more and more difficult at the minute. But our glamping sales have gone through the roof. We kind of went, well, I wonder why. Well, maybe people who like to come to Bluesfest go, well, let's not get an Airbnb this year. Let's not get a hotel. Let's get it something that's good or high quality on the site. And we've sold like 3 or 4 times as much as normal. There's always these changing patterns in consumer or Bluesfest addict behaviour, and we have to respond to it. Like people want to bring in their large vehicles more than ever before, hundreds of them, like Winnebagos and things like that. And so we're constantly finding we need to be able to react and respond to that. It's a bit more difficult this year with the buses to Bluesfest, because the bus company has rationalised their business. It's a new owner. We have nothing against that, but they're not providing the level of service in terms of the number of buses running as in previous years. And we can't do anything about that. So these are the things that you're always dealing with as a festival. It's like it's not a static business. It's always changing. So I'd say, come and camp at Bluesfest. You'll get the best experience. But whatever you do, don't forget some of the best stuff happens early. You know, like Rock Whiz goes on at 1:30 on Saturday, Sunday, which brings a lot of people in earlier to the site. And then there's these great artists like your Jackie Bensons, and you know, I'm very proud of some of the female blues guitarists I've managed to get down this year. Urja Littonen, who was voted the best blues guitarist in Europe only just a couple of years ago. Yes, we don't know her because she comes from Finland, and we just get barraged with everything American and UK, but there's a whole music scene in Europe that in many levels is as good or challenges what happens in those other 2 countries. And so she'll be there. Jackie Benson, who I guess she's a bit like Taj Mahal. She's a blues guitar player, but she is so super talented. She does other things as well.
Fantastic.
And then lastly, Ellie Venable, and Tom Haimbridge was out with my Buddy Guy tour early last year, and he just said, Peter, all the artists that he's buddies with, drummer and record producer, and he said to me, look, get Ellie Venable down. She's only 23 and she is going to be big. And lastly, there's Taj Farad, 14 years old, moved to America. His parents sold their home in Australia, bought a Winnebago and hit the road. And I am so proud to have hooked him up with Buddy Guy's agent. And there's a video came out just 48 hours ago of him on stage with Christone Ingram. And man, this 14-year-old is blowing. And we've got a new Aussie guitar superstar. And we're going to hear him at Bluesfest for the first time. And then Ben Swisser, who won our Grommets busking comp last year, again, he's about 18 or 19. He's been signed to the William Morris Agency and Island Records. So those guys coming up to our busking comp, some of them are very moving fast, and he is a great guitar player. So guys, there's some of the discoveries. There's many more. It's not all about Elvis Costello and the incredible Tom Jones or the return of Jimmy Barnes. It's all those musicians. That's what we are. We're a music festival. We should change our name to a music feast.
Well, Peter,
the coffee's working.
It's been great to chat, and all the best with your 35th anniversary celebration.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you for all your support over the years.
Not a problem.
Thank you for being a real music publication. I know it mustn't be easy, because it's not easy doing what I do at the moment.
Thanks, Peter.